Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me. So today we are going to be making some oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. This is a classic favorite of mine, and I hope that you join me in making these. So the first thing I need you to do is go wash your hands. That's very important. And once you do that, what you're gonna wanna do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. I just preheated mine. It's a little bit loud, so hopefully you can't hear it, or if you can, hopefully it's quiet. And the last thing I need you to do is grab a couple cookie sheets and make sure you spray them with a non-stick spray such as Pam. Okay, so let's get started. I have tons of stuff on my counter that I don't think you can actually see. So I'm just gonna go through what I have in front of me for ingredients. So I have some rolled oats, I have flour, I have regular white sugar, I have 2 eggs, I have brown sugar, I have salt, I have 1 cup of butter, I have vanilla, baking powder, baking soda, and chocolate chips. Okay, so there's a lot of ingredients here, but the recipe itself is pretty simple. So yeah, once you've preheated your oven and sprayed your pans, let's start baking. So the first thing you're gonna do is cream your butter and both sugars into a large bowl. Now, again, don't panic when you see this. You don't need one of these. You can just use a hand mixer. That's perfectly fine. You don't need to have one of these, so don't worry about that. So butter, 1 cup of butter, and I have let mine soften a bit before using it. So I put it out for maybe, I think I want to say I put it out for 2 hours ahead of time, just so that it's not hard. It's still not, it's not as soft as I would like. Ideally, you would leave your butter out all night, but just a couple hours is perfectly fine. It's just when the butter is soft, it's easier to combine with your sugar. Okay, so I've got about a cup of butter into my mixer here. And now we're going to add the brown sugar and the regular sugar. So we need 1 1/4 cups of brown sugar. So that's quite a bit of brown sugar. So you're gonna take your 1 cup measuring cup. I'm gonna scoop mine directly in, and remember, with brown sugar, we pack it down. And I just use the back of a spoon for that. So I've got approximately a cup here. I'm gonna put it directly in my bowl with my butter. And now I'm gonna grab my 1/4 cup measuring spoon. Pack that down, just like that. And I'm gonna add that to my butter. Now it's time to add the regular sugar. And for regular sugar, we need 3/4 cups. So you're gonna take your 1/4 cup measuring cup, and you're gonna use 3 of those, so 3/4. And with this one, I'm gonna just dip it in here, and you may not need to level it off with a knife, just depending how exact you wanna be. I just kind of shook mine, and it seems about right. So that's 1/4. There's my 2/4. And 1 more. There's my 3/4. See how I just kind of shake it to level it? That's fine for sugar. That's perfectly fine to do with sugar. Okay. now it's time to mix these together. So because I don't want to make a mess, I'm using this little guy here. Again, don't worry about it if you don't have a KitchenAid. You don't need one. Okay, this little guy here for me, it just helps reduce the mess because when I put the beaters on here, it might make a bit of a mess. And I just want to avoid that. So we're going to cream these together until they are well combined. And I think it's actually okay. There we go. This part may take a while until it's nice and creamy. Looking good. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. Almost there. Okay, I'm going to show you what this looks like now. So right now we have our butter and our sugars really nicely mixed together. That looks great. Now we need to add our vanilla and our eggs. So this recipe calls for 2 eggs. And remember in the last, I believe it was cookie video that I made, I put my eggs into a bowl first to ensure that I don't get any shells in my bowl. So this way it's easier for me to scoop out any eggshells if I need to. So there's 1, no eggshells that time. And there's 2, no eggshells. Awesome. So go ahead and crack your eggs into a bowl. And once you do that, we're going to put them in directly with our sugar and our butter mixture. Just like that. Next, we need to add our vanilla. So this recipe calls, let's see here, for 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So I measure my vanilla right over my bowl, and that's because if a little extra vanilla gets in, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. So there's 1 teaspoon. And there's my 2nd teaspoon. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do here is we are going to stir these until they are combined. So I'm gonna do that now. And it's not gonna take long to combine these. So I'd say maybe 30 to 45 seconds. And that's looking quite good. So I'm just gonna try and show you what I have here without making a total mess on the counter. I'm just gonna scrape this off. I just wanna show you what I have. So right now, my eggs and my vanilla are nice and mixed in. It doesn't take long. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to add in our flour, salt, baking soda, and baking powder, okay? So let's first do the flour. So according to this recipe, we need 2 1/4 cups of flour. So quite a bit of flour. Now remember, with flour, I like to scoop it directly into my measuring cup to avoid any air pockets. So go ahead and start scooping it into your measuring cups. Again, we are doing, this is actually quite a big recipe. So we're doing 2 1/4 cups of flour. I'm gonna take a knife and I am going to level it off exactly like that. So there's my 1 cup. Okay, I'm on to my 2nd cup now. So I'm just gonna start scooping it in. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I know I have a lot on my counter right now. So hopefully you can see everything okay. Awesome. So I'm just gonna level that off. And I'm gonna also pour that into my bowl here. And lastly, you're gonna grab your 1/4 cup here and you are just going to fill that with flour and level it off. And I'm gonna put that in my bowl. It's nice because everything just goes into one bowl, so it actually makes a bit less of a mess and it's quite easy. There's just quite a few ingredients for this particular recipe. Okay, so next we're gonna add our salt, and we need 1 teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to dry the vanilla off of here. Okay. So again, 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, this is something that I am gonna level off with my knife because I don't wanna add too much salt and end up with salty cookies. So 1 teaspoon of salt is going into my bowl. Next, we need to add the baking soda. And we need 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So remember, with my container, what I do is I just kind of stick my measuring spoon directly in there and scrape off the top using the box. But if you don't have a box that you can do that with, just level it off with your knife, the same as we did the flour. So there's 1 teaspoon. And there's my 2nd teaspoon. Now we're going to add in the baking powder. So we need only 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So 1/2 teaspoon. I'm just going to stick my measuring spoons in there, level it off as best I can. And I'm gonna put that directly in my bowl. So please, if I'm going too fast for you, just pause the video. Okay, so we just added our flour, salt, baking soda, and baking powder into our bowl. Now we're gonna mix it together, okay? And I am gonna use this guy again, just in case. I don't want any spillage. So I'm just gonna start stirring that together. Awesome. So it's starting to make a really nice cookie dough texture now. Okay. That's a really good dough. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like after I scrape down my paddles here. It is a good idea to scrape down the sides of your bowl a couple times if you are feeling like there's still a lot of flour left on the edge of your bowl. So that's what my mixture looks like. It has made a really nice looking cookie dough. Exactly what we want. Okay, so again, that step didn't take very long. I think I stirred it for maybe 20 to 30 seconds, just until it's combined. Now we are going to stir in our oats. Okay, so oats. For this recipe, we need 2 cups of oats. So again, I'm going to grab my 1 cup. And with this one, I'm just going to level it off by shaking it a little bit so that it's relatively level. So there's my 1 cup. It's gonna go directly in here. And 1 more cup. And we're gonna put that directly in here as well. So 2 cups of oats are in my bowl now. And now I am going to start stirring that. You can also, if you are using handheld beaters, I recommend mixing with a wooden spoon when you add your oats, okay? So if you are using handheld beaters, I highly recommend stirring in your oats with a wooden spoon. The only reason I'm using my mixer is because I actually have a button that says stir, so it actually just stirs it for me. But if you don't have one of these and you just have handheld beaters, just use a wooden spoon. It's much easier. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to add in our chocolate chips. This recipe calls for 1.5 cups of chocolate chips. So the dough by this point is getting quite thick, and it's going to be kind of hard to stir. So you're gonna have to use your muscles. So I'm using semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I do recommend using semi-sweet because it makes your cookies not as sweet, which is what we want. But if you don't have semi-sweet, you can use regular sweetened. So I'm just gonna pour 1 cup in there, and now I need 1/2 cup. So 1.5 cups of chocolate chips. So there's my 1/2 cup. Okay, so the dough is going to be quite hard to stir by this point. So yeah, use your muscles here. Just gonna give that a stir. Perfect. It doesn't need too long. I think I only did that for maybe 10 seconds. Awesome. Okay, so by this point you're gonna have a really thick cookie dough. It actually looks really good. I'm gonna show you in just a second here. Okay, so this is what we have. That looks really, really good. So yeah, this recipe, by the looks of the amount of dough I have in this bowl, it's going to make a lot. So be prepared for having a lot of cookies. I'm just gonna put this guy away. So bear with me for a couple minutes while I move this. Awesome. Okay, so we're on to the last step here. You are going to grab your cookie sheets that you have sprayed and put aside, and we are just going to put our cookies on our pan now. So I'm using about a tablespoon here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to scoop just like that. It's a pretty hefty scoop what I'm doing, because I want to make slightly bigger cookies. But basically, the smaller your scoops, the smaller your cookies. So you can kind of use your judgment depending on how big you want to make your cookies. So I'm gonna leave quite a bit of room in between my cookies here because I don't want them to bake together. Like, I don't want them to end up spreading out and touching each other. So I'm only going to do maybe 6 or 8 cookies on a pan. I'm gonna try and fit 8. So again, I'm just kind of scooping it in, and I'm just dropping them by rounded tablespoonfuls. So it's a pretty easy recipe, a bit more ingredients from some of the other videos, but still relatively simple to make. And oatmeal chocolate chip cookies are actually my favorite cookies, so this is great for me. Okay, so once you put all of your cookies on your cookie sheets, you are going to bake them for 7 to 10 minutes or until they're golden brown on the edges, okay? So if you want to leave them in longer, that's fine if you like a crunchy cookie, but yeah, 7 to 10 minutes until they're nice and golden brown on the edges, and then you're good to go. Don't forget to send me pictures of the cookies that you make. I would love to see how they turned out. So thank you so much for joining me again, and I will see you next week.